Hi everyone and welcome again to CodeFixed. So in today's video, we are going to look at how we can enable our Android application to ask for storage permissions from user device. To do that, we are going to use a Flutter package named as permission handler. This permission handler package stores all permission groups like storage, location, etc. So let's start. This is the code which asks for storage permissions. But wait, we are going to see step by step of how it works. So let's do one thing. I'm pressing Control A and delete. Now we are going to code from scratch. So before importing the packages, you need to ensure that you have this dependency installed named as permission handler in your pubspec.yaml file under dependencies section. So I have this permission handler and version I'm using is 3.1.0. You can get it from the pub site. Now coming back to our main file, here we are going to import the package, and so let's first of all take flutter material.dart and next import the package which is permission handler package. So we'll be writing permission handler and yes. Next, once we have imported this, we are going to create a void main function here which has a different type of void. So this main function will actually run app, and let's say you can name anything for your app. I am giving it as name my app. Okay, and now we need to create a stateful or stateless class. So here we are going to create a stateful class. So I'll write stf and this creates a stateful class. Let's name it my app. Okay, yeah. So this stateful class is created, and you can also notice that this error is gone because this pump visit functions my app and whatever name you have given to it, and this and the function the name in your main file should match. So once this is done, now we are going to create functions for permissions, right? So let us first create a variable which will hold an integer, allow us to know whether the permission is granted or not. So in this state class, we'll take a future int type variable. So let us write future int and let's name the variable as storage permission checker. Okay, so this will let us know whether the permission is granted or not. Now let's create a function which will be check storage permission. Okay, so this will again be of type future int and function name is check storage permission. Okay, so this is the function which will check whether the permissions are granted or not. So it will be an asynchronous function, so I'm adding an async keyword here. And now let's declare a variable final result, and that will be equal to. So here we need to call a function that will basically check whether the permission is granted or not. So this function basically returns a string. So if the permission is granted, then it will return a string like permission status granted. So we'll get to know the status granted. So this is basically an if-else condition we'll be using here. So let's type in await and let's call the function. So permission handler dot check permission status. Now this check permission status function takes a permission group for storage because we are doing it for storage. So here we will just input a permission group for storage, right? So yeah, and now let's print this result. So we'll write print result. Okay, now we need to check that whether permission is granted or not. So we are using an if else condition here. So let's check what this result contains. So first of all, we'll be converting this to string and we'll be comparing if this is equal to permission status status sorry status dot granted. So if the permission is granted, then it will return 1. Otherwise, in the else case, we need to call a function that will request for the storage. So we'll write request storage permission. Okay, so we need to call this function, and let's add a return because it is of type future, so it need to return something. So let's put a return, and now we need to create this function which will be request storage permission. Okay, so here we will write a future. This will again be of future in type, so we'll write future, and this function, let's copy this. Okay, so this function will again be an asynchronous function. Inside this function, we'll take a map. So let's say map, and this will be of the type permission group, and another thing is permission status. Okay, I'll tell you what these are later. So till then, just wait, and this will be named as result. Now let's call the function. So I'll write await and permission handler dot request permission function. So this function will take in a list, and this list will store the permission group for storage. So we'll write here permission group dot storage. Okay, so now let's check out whether this result contains, or whether the permission is granted to us or not. So for that, we'll return this result here. So I'll write return, simply return this result. Okay, and this result will be of permission group dot storage. Let's convert it to string, and let's compare whether it's equal to permission granted or not. So permission status dot granted inside the double quotes. Okay, and if this is the case, then we are going to return 1, else we are going to return 0. So we have used a ternary operator here. Now let me explain what is this map. So basically, permission group takes in a group of permissions. For storage, the group is for reading and writing, and this permission status holds the status of the permission, whether the permission is granted or denied, right? So on that basis, we are returning either 1 or 0. Now this is done. Now we need to just create an init state method. So we'll say override, and override what? So we'll override an init state method. So let's create an init state. It will be of type void init state, and this will take in a super dot init state. Okay, next we need to let's initialize the storage permission checker. So this will be initialized by the function, this check storage permission function which we have created. So here I'm going to write check storage permission checker, and now we are going to call this function here. So let's call this function. So we'll write return check storage permission. Okay, and now this function is called here, and that's it. Now we just need to create the UI and implementation for these functions. So let's do it quickly. So here we'll write material app. Okay, we are going to return a material app here, and inside the material app we'll have a home property that will take a future builder, because that will depend, basically the UI will depend on the permission, whether the permission is granted or not. So on that basis we have to return the screens, right? So this future builder takes a future, and this future will be a storage permission checker, right? Our variable which we have previously defined. Next, we have a builder here. So I'll write builder, and this builder takes two things.
context and a snapshot. This snapshot sounds a bit confusing, so let's name it as status only. And this will basically be a function, and inside this function we'll write if status dot connection state equal to connection state dot done. It means whether the status is connected or not, right? So if this is the case, then we need to create another if condition which will check whether this status has the data or not, right? So whether it has the data of 1 or 0 or not, whether the permission is denied or granted. So if this status dot has data, then we are going to create another if condition. Okay, so we'll write if. Now this condition will check whether the status is granted, whether the permission is granted or not. So we'll check whether the status is 1 or not, right? So we'll write whether the status dot data equal to 1. Now if this data is 1, which means permission is granted, and if that is the case, we need to redirect the user to another screen or whatever we want to do. So in this for this video, we are just redirecting the user to another screen. So I'll write return, and let me create another screen which will be named as my home. So here we are going to create another stateless class. Okay, so I'll write stl and I'll write my home. So this is another class which user will be redirected to, and this will be a scaffold, and which will have a body property that will be center. Okay, and the center has a child, and this child has a text, and this text will be saying hello. Alright, so if the permission is granted, then user will be redirected to this page. Now we'll be implementing the remaining else conditions. So this is done. So if the permission is granted, then we are returning the user to my home. Now what if this permission is not granted? So we need to define an else condition here. So this else condition will basically ask the user for permission, right? So which was not defined earlier, or which was not granted by the application earlier. So here we are going to return a scaffold, and the scaffold will again take a body, and this is one bracket. Yeah, so scaffold takes in a body here, and this body will take a center. The center has a child, and this child, let's give it a raised button. You can also use elevated button or material button, doesn't matter. This raised button takes a child, and this child will be a text which will tell that allow storage permission, and we need to call this the function which we have created earlier. This was request storage permissions, right? So here ask for allow storage permissions, and now we need to define the on press property here. So in this on press property, we need to call the function. So we're calling this storage permission checker is equal to check storage permissions, right? Okay, and now we are done with this. So we have created this else condition, and if the status has data, but what if this doesn't have the data? So we need to define else condition for this also. So we'll go here and we'll write an else condition for this as well. So this will take again a return function, or sorry, a return statement, and return a scaffold which will have a body property, and this will take a center which will have a child which will be a text. Okay, and this text says that something went wrong. Okay, so I think we missed some semicolon here. Okay, what's this build doing here? Okay, fine. And now the last condition we need to write for this connection state. What if the connection state is not done? So here we are going to write this else condition for connection state as well. So again we are going to write the return statement here. So it will again return this scaffold, and the scaffold will again take in a body. This takes a center, and center again takes a child, and next in this child we are going to return a text. No, not text this time. So here now we are going to return a circular progress indicator. So basically this will be indicating that connection is in progress. Okay, so here we put a semicolon, and this is done. Finally we are done with our coding part, and now it's the time to test it. So let's quickly open up the emulator and let's test it out. The emulator started. Let's go to run and run without debugging. So what does it say? Plugin permission handler user deprecated version. Okay, it doesn't matter if you are, because I'm using the version of older version, so it doesn't matter. So let's wait for it to launch. Okay, the app is built and now it's installing. Let's wait. And yeah, you can see the pop-up has come asking for allow this device permission to access photos and media on your device. And let's press on allow, and yeah, it redirected us to the next page, hello, here in our my home screen. So finally we are done with the storage permissions, but there's one thing remaining that you need to do, and that is to subscribe the channel and implement this on your own. So that's all for this video. Stay tuned for more amazing videos. Thank you.